People think big relationship disasters start with screaming matches, thrown plates, or someone dramatically packing a suitcase like they're in a cheap Netflix pilot. Nope. Sometimes it starts with your wife smiling at her phone like she just got a text from God. And you're sitting 5 feet away, holding a fork, wondering if you're about to be promoted from husband to furniture. We were doing the normal evening routine. Kitchen lights too bright, TV too loud, dishes piling up like they pay rent. I was halfway through dinner, mentally negotiating with my stomach about whether I needed seconds, when I noticed Amanda's face. Not the "I love you" face, not the "I'm tired" face, the "I'm excited and you're not invited" face. She was on the couch, phone in hand, thumb moving like she was trying to sandpaper reality into something she liked more. Little smiles, quiet little laughs. That kind of private joy that somehow makes you feel like an unpaid intern in your own marriage. I didn't jump to conclusions immediately. I'm a grown man. I don't panic every time a woman enjoys technology. But then I saw the screen flash as she tilted it, just for a second. A group chat. A name like Weekend Queens or some similar crime against adult literacy. And beneath it, screenshots, cities, dates, a booking confirmation. I wasn't trying to spy. The couch just betrayed her angle. It was a cooperative witness. I set my fork down and asked, calm as a hostage negotiator. Planning something? She didn't even look up. Just kept scrolling, like I was a notification she'd swiped away 3 years ago. Not really, she said. I'll tell you later. Later. The most dangerous word in marriage. Later means, I already decided, and now I'm letting time do the job of consent. I nodded. Not because I agreed, because I was collecting data, like a scientist. Or a man who's been married long enough to know when the temperature in the room just shifted 1 degree toward winter. She finally glanced up, smile still on her face, a smile that didn't reach me. Then her phone buzzed again, and she dipped right back into it like I wasn't there. I'm not insecure, but I'm not blind either. When the person you live with starts hiding excitement from you, it usually means one of 2 things. They're planning you a surprise party. They're planning a life where you are not the surprise. And I hadn't exactly noticed balloons in the hallway. The next evening, she said it like she was announcing she'd be picking up milk. We're going on a trip. I looked up from my laptop. We? She rolled her eyes like I'd asked what oxygen was. Me, with the girls. I leaned back. Okay, where? She shrugged, casual. Maybe Prague or Vienna, somewhere nice. And when is this somewhere? I asked. Next week. I waited for the rest, for the part where we discuss it like adults, like a married couple, like people who share a budget, a home, and a life. Instead, she kept talking like I was customer support. It's just a weekend, maybe 5 days, nothing crazy. 5 days, weekend, same sentence. Okay. Who's going? I asked. She started listing names like she was reading the cast list of a reality show. Lena, Katya, Jessica, and maybe Ashley. I recognized all of them. I'd met them all. I'd endured them all. Lena was fine. Katya treated relationships like a subscription service. Cancel anytime, no questions asked. Jessica loved to talk about manifesting and energy while asking other people to pay for dinner. And Ashley? Ashley was recently divorced, and she carried her divorce like a trophy. The way some people carry a new handbag. Proudly, loudly, always visible. Ashley didn't go out. She went hunting. I kept my face neutral. A man learns. If you react too early, you're suddenly the villain in a story you didn't agree to be in. So, I said carefully, how much is this trip? Amanda waved a hand. Not much. That's the second most dangerous phrase in marriage. Not much is a magic spell. It transforms any number into stop asking questions. Define not much, I said. She sighed. Why do you always do this? It's just a trip. I watched her, and slowly the details started leaking out, not because she volunteered them, but because I asked questions like a person who enjoys knowing where his money is going. Turns out, the girls had been planning it for weeks. The bookings were basically done. The discussion happened in that group chat I wasn't in. She wasn't asking me, she was informing me, and that's where the line is. I'm not the kind of husband who thinks his wife needs permission to breathe fresh air. I don't run a household like a prison warden. I don't need her location every second. I don't want that. But there is a difference between freedom and treating your marriage like a suggestion. I kept my voice even. Okay, let's talk logistics. Dates? Friday to Tuesday, she said. Budget? She shrugged again. We'll figure it out. Will? I repeated. As in, you and the girls will figure it out? Or we, me and you, will figure it out? She made a face. Don't start. I smiled slightly. I wasn't starting. I was asking. Then I asked the next question, the one that always brings truth out of hiding. Where are the funds coming from? She crossed her arms. From our money. There it was. Our money, but her decision. That's when my calm started turning into something sharper, not anger, not shouting, just clarity. We had things scheduled next week, not romantic things, real things, adult things, a payment due, a family obligation, a whole month that wasn't exactly begging for new travel expenses. We were stable, but stable doesn't mean you light money on fire for vibes. I put both hands on the table, calm, measured, like I was laying out a contract. Listen, I said, I'm not against you taking a break. I'm not against you going somewhere, but I am against this context. She blinked. Context? Yes, context, I repeated. The sudden dates, the unclear details, the group chat planning, the money, and the fact that Ashley is involved. Amanda's eyes narrowed. Oh my God, here we go. No, I said. Here we don't go. That's the point, she scoffed. You don't like Ashley because she's single. I don't like Ashley because she treats every trip like an audition for the next husband. That's disgusting, Amanda snapped. It's accurate, I said. She stood up. So you don't trust me. And there it was, the classic move, the Olympic-level leap from facts to feelings. I didn't take the bait. I trust you, I said. I don't trust this setup. What setup? I counted on my fingers. Not telling me until the last minute. No clear plan. Using shared money like it's a personal reward. And going with someone who's currently rebuilding her life by pulling other women into chaos. Amanda laughed. A short, sharp sound. Wow, you really think you know everything? I nodded slowly. Not everything, but I know enough to ask questions. She paced once, like she was trying to find the angle where I'd look guilty. God, she muttered. You always have to make it about control. This isn't control, it's boundaries. She turned to me. Her expression was calm now, almost too calm. That kind of calm that means a storm just chose its target. Fine, she said. If that's how you want to be. She took a breath. Then she dropped it like a verdict. Then you have 10 days. I blinked once. 10 days for what? To change your behavior, she said smoothly. Either you stop acting like this, or I'm going, and I'm done. Done. Like I was a project she was tired of. I stared at her, not in shock, more like I was watching someone reveal who they really were. And in that moment, it clicked. The trip wasn't the conflict. The trip was the weapon. A shiny little excuse to see if I'd fold, to see if I'd beg, to see if I'd apologize for having a spine. Amanda picked up her phone again, like she'd just completed a task. I stood up slowly, not angry, just awake. You know what's funny? I said. She looked up, bored already. What? I wasn't trying to change you, I said. I was trying to talk to my wife. She frowned. I am your wife. I nodded. Then start acting like a partner, not a judge. Her lips pressed into a line. 10 days. And then she went back to her phone. Like the conversation was over. Like I was supposed to spend the next 10 days dancing for my role in her life. I didn't say anything else. I just nodded once. Because sometimes the best response to an ultimatum is not a speech. It's silence. And the decision to stop playing. If you ever want to understand passive aggression, don't read psychology books. Just watch how someone packs a suitcase when they want you to notice it. Amanda didn't wait until the last day. No suspense, no mystery. The very next morning, the suitcase appeared in the bedroom like a threat with wheels. Not hidden, not subtle. Right in the middle of the room. Open, wide open. As if it were saying, "Good morning, this is happening whether you like it or not." She started packing early. Loudly, deliberately. Zippers zipped with extra confidence. Hangers slammed into the closet rod like they owed her money. Shoes placed carefully, one by one, like exhibits in a court case against me. I was making coffee when she walked past me holding a dress. "This dress is perfect for rooftop bars," she said, holding it up. "Which rooftop bars?" I asked. She smiled without warmth. "You know, the nice ones." "Ah, yes, the nice ones. Very specific, very reassuring." She dropped the dress into the suitcase and moved on without waiting for my reaction. That was the theme of the day. Then came the phone calls. On speaker. Always on speaker. "So Friday morning works best," she said into the phone. Pause. Laugh. "Yeah, he knows. He. Not my name. Not my husband. Just he, like I was a piece of furniture that came with the apartment." I sat at the table, coffee cooling in my hands, watching my marriage get narrated for an invisible audience. She walked past me again, this time holding a swimsuit. "What do you think?" she asked. I looked at it, then at her. "I think you already decided." Her face tightened for half a second. That wasn't what she wanted. She wanted resistance, emotion, jealousy, a reaction she could point at and say, "See? Control." Instead, she got calm. And nothing frustrates someone issuing an ultimatum more than the absence of panic. The next day, the tone changed. Day 1 was about showing me she was leaving. Day 2 was about explaining why I was wrong for noticing. "I don't get why this is such a big deal," Amanda said over breakfast. "I'm a grown woman. I don't need permission." I nodded. "That's true." She blinked. So? "So grown women still discuss shared money and shared schedules with their partners." She pushed her plate away. "See? This right here. You always make it about control." I took a sip of coffee. "No, I make it about consequences." She laughed sharply. "Consequences? For what? Wanting a life?" "Wanting a life is fine," I said. "Pretending you don't have one at home is where it gets weird." She stood up. "I don't need permission." "I didn't offer permission," I replied. "I offered a conversation." She rolled her eyes. "You're acting like I'm doing something wrong." I shrugged. "You're acting like nothing you do affects anyone else." That landed. Not hard, but clean. She didn't answer, just grabbed her phone and left the room. Later that afternoon, I heard the familiar buzz of the group chat. Laughter, voice messages, reactions. Amanda walked into the living room mid-rant, phone still in her hand. "Katya says this is a huge red flag," she announced. I didn't look up from my laptop. "Katya thinks horoscopes are legal advice. She says normal men don't limit women. Normal men don't get ultimatums either." She scoffed. "Jessica agrees with her." Of course she does. Jessica believes every inconvenience is trauma and every expense is self-care. "And Ashley?" I asked. She hesitated for a fraction of a second. "Ashley says I shouldn't let fear-based relationships stop my growth." There it was. Ashley, newly divorced, recently reborn, walking motivational poster for bad decisions. I closed my laptop. "Let me guess," I said. "Ashley found herself after her divorce?" "She's happy," Amanda snapped. "She's loud," I replied. "There's a difference." That night, I realized something important. This trip wasn't being planned anymore. It had already been decided. By committee. I wasn't her husband in this story. I was an obstacle the group needed to manage. And the funny thing? The harder they pushed, the clearer everything became. By the fourth day, the relationship stopped feeling emotional and started feeling financial. That's usually the stage where things quietly rot. I was paying bills, doing the boring adult rituals that keep life from collapsing, when I saw the charge. At first, I assumed it was a mistake. Some automatic renewal doing what it does best, stealing politely. I didn't look at the charges like an angry husband. I looked at them like an adult who suddenly realized where our shared life was being quietly converted into experiences. Flights came first, about $100, not economy, not first class. That comfortable middle ground marketed as, you deserve a little more. Extra legroom, priority boarding, the illusion that upgrading your seat somehow upgrades your life decisions too. Then the hotel, 1,250, 4 stars. Aesthetic, rooftop bar. The kind of place where the lighting is soft enough to make bad choices look poetic, and the cocktails come with herbs you can't pronounce. Breakfast included, dignity not guaranteed. Next came the part labeled as something vague, deposits, experiences, activities, about $900, city tours, boat rides, wine tastings, things you don't remember clearly but feel obligated to post about. Moments designed less for enjoyment and more for proof that you were there. And finally, the quiet killer. Preparation, roughly $700. New clothes because apparently nothing you own survives a trip meant for photos. Cosmetics, skincare, hair, nails. Little purchases that don't sound dangerous individually, but together form a slow financial bleed disguised as self-care. I added it all up again, even though the number didn't change. $480. I stared at the screen longer than necessary, not because I was shocked, but because my brain was recalculating reality in real time. Amanda was in the kitchen, leaning against the counter, scrolling through photos with that focused smile people get when they're already somewhere else. How much is this trip? I asked. I didn't sound angry. I didn't sound calm either. I sounded factual. She didn't even turn around. I told you, not much. I turned the phone so she could see it. This is much. She glanced at it for half a second, then shrugged. A casual shrug. Effortless. I deserve a break. There it was. The sentence people use when they've already decided that fairness is optional. I'm not arguing that, I said. I'm asking why this wasn't a discussion before money left our account. She crossed her arms, defensive but practiced. Because every time I bring something up, you turn it into a problem. I exhaled slowly. No, I turn it into a conversation. You turn conversations into ultimatums. She shook her head. You're ruining this for me. That word again. Ruining. As if her enjoyment required my silence to exist. I didn't push further, not because I agreed, but because I saw it clearly now. Any resistance would be reframed. Any question would become evidence. Any boundary would be labeled control. That evening, the apartment felt different. Not loud, not hostile, just colder. Not the kind of cold that screams, the kind that reorganizes. She moved through the space like a guest who'd already given notice, her things slowly separating from ours, her attention permanently elsewhere. I noticed details I hadn't before. How she stopped asking what time I'd be home. How she stopped mentioning plans that involved us. How every sentence started with I and ended without checking if I was still part of it. Day 5 arrived with recycled words and sharper edges. If you trusted me, she said, standing in front of the mirror, fixing her hair like she was preparing for a life without interruptions. We wouldn't even be talking about this. I leaned against the doorframe, watching her reflection instead of her face. Trust isn't the absence of questions, I said. It's the presence of answers. She turned slowly. So now I'm hiding something? You're deciding alone and asking me to pretend it's partnership, I said. She laughed, but it wasn't humor. It was dismissal. You always do this, she said. You make things heavier than they need to be. I smiled faintly. That's what responsibility feels like when someone else is avoiding it. That hit harder than I expected. She went quiet, not because she agreed, but because she didn't have a counter that didn't make her look selfish. After that, she withdrew further. More time on her phone, longer showers, later nights, less eye contact. She wasn't fighting anymore. She was distancing. By day 6, the threats softened into previews. Amanda was folding clothes on the bed, separating things into neat piles. What goes with her, what stays behind. She didn't announce it. She didn't explain it. She just did it. I'll be fine on my own, she said casually, without looking at me. I didn't answer right away. She kept going. I'm not helpless, you know. I can take care of myself. I won't disappear if I'm alone. Each sentence landed softly, like it wasn't meant to hurt. But together, they formed a pattern. I leaned against the doorframe. I've never said you couldn't. She nodded. I know. Then, after a pause that lasted a little too long, she added, maybe I really am better off alone. That one wasn't casual. That one was a test. I watched her closely then. Not the words, the certainty behind them. She wasn't asking how I felt. She wasn't checking my reaction. She was rehearsing, talking herself into something she had already pictured. She wasn't imagining a future with me in it. She was describing a future that worked without me. And that's when it became obvious. This wasn't about the trip. This wasn't about freedom. This wasn't even about conflict. She had already stepped into a version of her life where my presence was optional. I didn't argue. I didn't plead. I simply thought, she's already living in a future where I'm not there. And once you see that clearly, there's nothing left to negotiate. By the 7th day, she changed tactics. When anger doesn't work and confidence stops intimidating, people usually reach for guilt. It's softer, slower, harder to refuse without looking like the villain. Amanda didn't storm into the room. She didn't accuse. She didn't raise her voice. She sat down, carefully. On the edge of the couch, hands folded in her lap, shoulders slightly slouched, not defeated, just tired enough to look fragile. I don't feel like a woman anymore, she said quietly. I didn't answer, not because I didn't hear her, but because I knew what was coming next, and interrupting would only help her build momentum. I feel invisible, she continued, like I'm slowly disappearing. She finally looked at me then, eyes glossy, waiting to see if the words were landing. I used to feel alive, she said, desired, free, and now, I don't even recognize myself. There it was, the narrative where I wasn't a partner with boundaries. I was an environment that was suffocating her. You're killing something in me, she added, her voice cracking just enough to sound real. You don't even notice. That was the moment she expected me to rush in, to deny it, to reassure her, to tell her she was beautiful, important, needed. The old version of me probably would have. Instead, I stayed where I was. I'm not responsible for your identity, I said calmly. She froze. I didn't say you were, she replied quickly. You did, I said. Just not directly. Her expression shifted, confusion mixed with irritation. I'm telling you how I feel, she snapped, and you're analyzing it like a problem. I'm listening, I said. I'm just not accepting blame for something you decided long before this week. That was the wrong answer. The tears stopped almost immediately, not gradually, instantly, like a switch had been flipped. She wiped her face, stood up, and said flatly, You don't care. I care, I replied. I just don't surrender myself to keep you comfortable. She didn't respond. She went into the bedroom and closed the door harder than necessary. That was when I understood something important. The tears weren't grief. They were leverage. The 8th day felt different from the moment it started. Not louder, quieter, too quiet. She watched me that morning like someone studying a pattern that had suddenly changed, waiting for me to argue, to question, to push back. I didn't. I made coffee, answered emails, Went about my day like a man whose emotional energy was no longer available for negotiation. That unsettled her more than any confrontation could have. "You're being weird," she finally said. "I'm being consistent," I replied. "Do you even want me to stay?" she asked. I didn't answer immediately. She tilted her head, then added, almost casually, "Are you going to change?" A pause. "Your 10-day probation is ending." There it was. Not a relationship. A performance review. I looked at her and realized something strange. She wasn't angry. She wasn't sad either. She was evaluating, like I was a project that hadn't delivered expected results. "I don't remember applying for probation," I said. She exhaled sharply. "You know exactly what I mean." "I do," I replied. "You're waiting to see if I'll break." Her jaw tightened. "I'm waiting to see if you care enough." "That's not caring," I said calmly. "That's conditioning." She shook her head. "You always twist things." "No," I said. "I just don't decorate them." Her eyes filled, just enough to look convincing. She stood up. "You don't care." "I care," I replied. "I just don't negotiate my dignity." She left the room without another word. For the rest of the day, she hovered. Tried small talk, asked questions that didn't matter, laughed at things that weren't funny. She wasn't confident anymore. She was checking her footing. That night, she sat near me on the couch, not touching, close enough to feel the space. She kept glancing at her phone, then at me, like she was waiting for something to happen. Nothing did. By the 9th day, she went cold again. No emotions, no softness. "I'm going," she said flatly. "With or without your approval." I nodded. "That's your decision." She stared at me. "That's it?" "That's it." She waited, counted silently. Nothing. "No consequences?" she asked, almost irritated. "There are consequences," I said. "I'm just not threatening you with them." That's when it finally sank in. The 10-day test wasn't ending because I'd failed. It was ending because I refused to keep taking it. And for the first time since this started, she looked unsure. Not about the trip, but about her leverage. The 10th day arrived quietly. No dramatic music, no last-minute revelations. Just morning. I woke up before my alarm, the way you do when your body already knows something important is about to end. The apartment was still, not asleep, suspended. I walked into the hallway and saw the suitcase, standing upright, by the door, handle extended, not hidden, not tentative, final. Amanda was in the bathroom getting ready. I could hear the familiar sounds, the faucet, the drawer opening and closing, the small rituals of preparation. The same ones she'd done 1,000 times before work, before dinners, before weekends that still belonged to us. This one didn't. She came out a few minutes later, dressed carefully, not casual, not rushed. The kind of outfit people choose when they expect to be seen or judged. She noticed me standing there and paused. This was the moment she'd been waiting for. The last chance for the script to play out the way she imagined. No suitcase argument, no emotional breakdown, no sudden promises. Just me, standing there, awake and calm. "Well?" she asked. I didn't pretend not to understand. "You wanted me to change," I said. "So I did." Her brow furrowed. "That doesn't look like change." "I stopped living under ultimatums," I continued. "I stopped negotiating my place in my own relationship." She scoffed. "So this is your pride talking?" "No," I said. "This is clarity." She glanced at the suitcase, then back at me. "You're really going to let me go like this?" she asked. The phrasing was interesting. Let me, like she was still waiting for permission, or absolution, or resistance she could use as proof that she mattered. I said, "You've been making this decision for days." She crossed her arms, defensive again. "You could stop this." I shook my head. I could stop myself. That's what I did. That hit her harder than anger ever could have. She stood there, silent, recalculating. If this trip matters more than respect, I said evenly. Then the choice was already made. I'm just not pretending otherwise. For a second, just one, I thought she might say something real, not a threat, not a test, not a line she'd rehearsed, but instead, she reached for the suitcase. I guess that's it, she said. It's been it, I replied. She opened the door and paused, waiting. For what? I wasn't sure. A last look, a last plea, a last sign that I'd regret this. I gave her none of it. The door closed behind her with a soft, unremarkable click. No echo this time, just silence. I expected the silence to feel heavy. It didn't. It felt clean. The apartment looked the same, but something fundamental had shifted, like removing a constant background noise you didn't realize was exhausting you. I sat down on the couch and listened. No buzzing phone, no tension waiting to be triggered, no emotional landmines disguised as conversations. Just space. And for the first time in days, weeks, maybe longer, my chest didn't feel tight. I wasn't relieved because she left. I was relieved because the test was over. I hadn't failed it. I had refused it. That afternoon, I made coffee and drank it slowly. Not because I was calm, but because I could be. No one was watching my reactions. No one was grading my tone. Later, I realized something else. The relationship hadn't ended that morning. It ended the moment she decided love was something you threaten people with. The suitcase was just the punctuation. People love to say relationships require fighting. They're wrong. Relationships require choice. And sometimes the most honest choice isn't to fight harder. It's to stop fighting for someone who needs you afraid to feel secure. I didn't lose my wife that day. I found my boundary. And I slept better that night than I had in a long time. The divorce didn't happen fast. It never does. It happened the way most adult things happen, through emails, paperwork, neutral voices on the phone, and rooms that smelled faintly of coffee and disinfectant. No shouting, no courtroom drama, no last-minute confessions, just signatures. Amanda told people it was mutual. That was the first version. The second version came later, once she realized mutual didn't get enough sympathy. By then, the story had evolved. According to her, the marriage didn't end because of ultimatums, money, or respect. It ended because of a trip. A normal trip. A harmless trip. A girl's getaway that any secure man would have supported. She told her friends I refused to even fight for her. That was the phrase she liked the most. He didn't even fight for me. She said it with a sad smile, the kind that invites nods and quiet outrage on her behalf. They believed her. Of course they did. It's a much cleaner story that way. In her version, I wasn't a man with boundaries. I was emotionally lazy, cold, afraid of her independence. A guy who threw away a marriage because he couldn't handle a few days without her. She told them I got angry over nothing, that I overreacted, that I punished her for wanting freedom. The trip became a symbol, a prop. No one asked why the tickets were bought without a conversation. No one asked why shared money disappeared without agreement. No one asked why love came with a deadline and a probation period. Those details didn't photograph well. What photographed well was her saying, "All I wanted was a little space," and he shut down completely. They nodded. They hummed sympathetically. They told her she deserved better. She didn't correct them. Why would she? The version where she issued ultimatums didn't cast her as the victim. The version where she tested me didn't make her look strong. So she told the version where I failed a test I never agreed to take. What she never told them was that she gave me 10 days to become smaller. That she measured love by obedience. That when I didn't beg, she panicked. She never mentioned the suitcase waiting by the door like a threat. She never mentioned calling it a probation. She never mentioned saying she'd leave if I didn't change. Because in that version, I didn't abandon her. She walked away from a man who refused to kneel. People asked me what happened. I kept my answer short. We wanted different things. Some pushed. She said you didn't even try. I smiled politely. I tried honesty, I said. It didn't test well. That usually ended the conversation. Over time, the story stopped being about me. It always does. New problems appeared, new disappointments, new villains. Funny thing, when you tell the same story enough times, you start to hear its cracks. A few months later, someone mentioned she was confused, that the trip hadn't fixed anything, that freedom felt expensive, that independence was lonelier than Instagram suggested. I didn't comment. By then, I wasn't part of her narrative anymore. And that was the real ending. Here's the part no one likes to hear. I didn't lose my marriage because I refused to fight. I lost it because I refused to perform fear. Because I didn't confuse love with submission. Because when she said, "Prove you want me," I asked, "At what cost?" And when the cost turned out to be my dignity, I declined the offer. She called that indifference. I called it self-respect. Some people need resistance to feel chosen. Some people need control to feel safe. And some people mistake silence for weakness, when it's actually the moment someone decides they're done negotiating their worth. I didn't stop loving her that day. I stopped auditioning, and that was unforgivable. If you felt this story hit hard, drop a like, subscribe for more, and share your thoughts in the comments. Your support keeps Steelheart beating.